and this is with Steve Bittinger, Garden Railroading. This is his part 2 of 3. Now, I've personally visited his railroad, and of course, this isn't specifically on his railroad, but this G-scale garden railroading is absolutely fascinating. And I it's so nice to have diversity in this program, and certainly G-scale is we'll call it unusual compared to some of the things that all of us model. So it's good to have this program. So Steve, you're on.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back again. 2 weeks in a row. I don't know how to act, but I'll try to just follow up quickly with where we were. So going way back to last August, we had a proposal that we were going to take a rail car, take it outside, and let it weather naturally instead of us doing the usual stuff where we weather our equipment with powders, paints, and so forth. Up until an hour ago, this rail car, which I'm going to bring out here right now, was sitting out here in a soaking rain we had today, and we're about to have another one. So this is since August, and if I tilt this over to you just a little bit, we purposely put on top of this car some metal to create some oxide staining and see what would happen with that, because the plastics are not going to oxidize on their own. Yes, they're going to fade a little bit. This stuff has UV protection written into it, so it's a slow process. So I will tell you that the sides of the car have faded. If we would look back to the shiny new look it had in the beginning, it's already started to dull out. It doesn't have that shiny look anymore. Nice to do that way. Interesting, we had a huge windstorm last Sunday, and the Boxcar went all the way down the track by itself, all the way to the end of the track and stopped. So it was the self-propelled Boxcar. So we're going to put it back outside for about another 2 months, and I think that'll be the end of that particular project. And then start messing around with it a little bit, take some brushes and so forth, start using this oxide, this material up here, and there's plenty more on the steel wool that we were using to work up on the sides of it. So there we go, update on our Boxcar. Next item for tonight's program, we've been doing a multiple series on the construction of an outdoor raised garden bed, 500 square feet in area. And we are now down to the point where we come to just the final end of that project, ready to put down track, ready to do scenery, and ready to either hardwire it or go to battery power. So we took our mini model of this, and hope everybody can see that. So what we have at this point is a proposal. Last time I was here, we had shown you all the different aspects. So we had the drainage tile underneath, we had the ballast underneath for that area, backfilling it with the topsoil, and adding these boulders in the center. That's our scenic sort of divide. The wire that we're laid out on here represents where our track is going to go. And this is sort of not a switching conventional layout in that sense. This is simply for somebody to get started and run trains. And our level of gradient in here is pretty easy to do. We've got almost 30 feet end to end here. So we can do about 3% grade on this and be up and over our lower track lines. This was designed with the idea that you could expand it in the future, either this direction, whichever way you wanted to go. And that would be the area you would probably build a yard, engine facility, or something like that. There's also, we've left open room here at this end for structures, landscaping, and things of that nature. We could also do the same around here. This is by no means what the individual would have to do. This is just my idea of something that incorporates some elevation change. We have a tunnel that feeds through our hillside. We have a bridged area, and if I spin this around, where this is looped in the air would be a wooden trestle. Something that this way gives you an opportunity to have multiple features typically found on just about any railroad that you would want to design. Now, when we started, we had a budget in mind. The budget and the end price ended up not being too far apart. So I'm just going to go over this real quick. In the end, our cost came to $2.90 a square foot, just under $3. And since we're 500 square feet, that puts us very close to $1,500 in this project. That number is flexible depending on how much labor you want to do yourself versus what you hire out. So here's where we spent our money. We bought 50 railroad ties for $750. We estimated $125 to have those delivered. We bought one box of plastic trash bags for our liner on the inside for $30. We bought fiberglass 1/4-inch rebar. Originally, it was going to be metal. That was going to be $120 in metal. The fiberglass brought the price down to $40. That's a nice savings. We bought 4-inch drain tile to lay around the perimeter of this. That's $126 for a 100-foot roll. We need 98 feet, so that works out very well. The broken rubble, bricks, rocks, and so forth in the bottom, zero cost. We just go out and gather that up. The cross strapping that we're going to put in here, we did that to hold the sides together. Again, it was free. We got it at the lumber yard from the bundles of lumber they delivered. We just went out and asked for their old strapping. Vegetation sterilizer. One container of Spectracide is $6.50. That's enough to spray and kill all the weed that would happen to be in the bottom of here. We figured the fill dirt and the boulders were going to come free. I looked on Marketplace Facebook this week. There were 3 different places offering free dirt. Just come and get it. So there you just have the hauling. I'd recommended that you contact swimming pool companies. They will be glad to get rid of their excess dirt and rock to you. May even haul it to your site. If you're reasonably close and they can get rid of it, they will bring it to you. Next thing is to move that around. $360 for a Bobcat, either renting it at a rental center or hiring an excavating company. And that's for 4 hours of excavating work. So they're going to be taking the dirt material, putting it in there for you. They're going to take the boulders, pick them up, place them around on the layout. And the rest of that's going to be your handwork to tamp it, put it in place. And if you need any extra touch up after it settles and so forth, you're probably going to go out and get your wheelbarrow out or whatever you happen to have and a little bit more touch up than you should be there. I put $15 in for miscellaneous because you're going to need staples and nails and a few things of that nature. When we get done, $1,452.50 for our ready-to-go layout. Indoors, building the typical indoor layout. I've built many of those. Currently, the price of lumber and materials, I estimate you're going to be at least $2 a square foot indoors. This is going to cost you a little more, but you can see that these things are more of a construction project than it is for a carpentry project. This is something where you way more labor intensive. People doing these type of things, that's why a lot of them will just go on the ground flat. It's the least expensive way to do it. However, as you get older, you're going to regret that. You need to be at least knee height. 26, 28 inches minimum is perfect to get you up. Secondly, it's easier to put the trains on and off the track. They look nicer. They're right up close to you. You're not getting that sort of bird's eye view of everything where you look down on top of it. And as from an operational standpoint of view, if you're cleaning track or maintaining it, it's a whole lot easier than getting down on your hands and knees. As you get older, it's not much fun crawling around on the ground with your trains. So I hope everybody enjoyed this project. Referring back, if you look at the earlier videos, those are all recorded online. Anybody thinking about doing this, you can go back and reference to those. And I think that the next thing I would do on future shows is some of you are probably not familiar with all the different kinds of G-scale products. We're going to be looking at all the manufacturers who make track, switches, some of the things that you can incorporate into that as far as if you're going to do transformer, battery operations, where you get those items and kind of a ballpark of what they cost. And there's a big, big variable depending on how sophisticated you get with those type of items. Some of it is very familiar to those of you that are dead rail operation in just about any scale. Anything in G scale, the voltages and the amperages go up because the motors are much better. I'll take questions on that right now if anybody wants to. And if not, we're going to move on.
Steve, I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
So I imagine you're going to have to put ballast and probably two different size ballasts on this? Do you put a coarse ballast down, then a finer ballast, then lay your ties? That's probably getting ahead on your program. But is that the theory?
Okay. I think we kind of touched on this one time. So here you go. Multiple methods of doing this. A, just what you are saying. You're going to have to trench underneath where your track goes, at least 8 inches down. Stone for under that is clean ballast. At our quarry here, it's called number 57 stone. Has no dust in it, and it's a crushed limestone. You can get crushed granite, basalt, whatever it is. Classification of stone is all the same. Doesn't matter what the material is. So I would go down to the quarry here and tell them I wanted to get X tons of number 57. That's what you're going to put for the rough drainage base under your track work. Next thing, where you're going to lay the track on top of that, you need to go to something much finer. Typically, what I see on YouTube and places like this is people using really way oversized stone. If we take standard railroad ballast, that's 1.5 inches plus, 1.5 to 2 inch stone, number 2 stone, and we scale that down to G scale, you're talking about stone that is somewhere about 1/8 of an inch, right about there, 1/8, 3/16 of an inch. Here at our quarry, we call that stone dust. This is what you use for under pavers. This is what we sometimes use for compaction in trenches where we're doing utility lines, but stone dust. I use stone dust on my railroad. However, my railroad is on poured concrete, and that's another approach. So it just depends on how much you want to spend, how much time you want to take, and what you expect the final product to achieve. I would tell you that the more permanent you want your railroad to be, you're going to be more inclined to a solid road base.
Okay, that answers that. And then I assume you're buying rail in length, and then you're all those curves, you're just bending the rail yourself. Is that it?
No, you're going to probably, as a starter, you're probably going to buy pre-bent radius track,
Oh, okay.
starting from 4-foot diameter, 5-foot, 6-foot diameter, 8-foot diameter. Pieces coming anywhere from 12 inches up to about 26 to 28 inches long. Your straight track can be bought at 1-foot lengths all the way. I just bought some last weekend in 8-foot lengths. You don't find that's with the ties, the rail and ties. You can buy rail, you can buy tie strips. You can get a track bender and work with anything you would like and make your own radiuses, that's really the nice way to go, is to have a track bender. Our club has one because the thing costs $250. So we have one, we pass it around, everybody shares it and bends their track as they need.
So I imagine your rail is available. I mean, I've seen yours as brass, and I know that there's probably aluminum, and there's probably stainless steel as well, and maybe even steel. Is that correct?
Okay, we can start with everywhere from plastic. There's actually plastic track. We can next go up to just what you said. Bachman makes plated track, tin plated. You do not want to buy that for outdoor use, okay? You want to go to a solid metal, and that's probably more likely. Almost everybody is using either brass or stainless steel. That's probably the two.
And since you're dead rail, it's really, I'm not sure what would be more money, stainless steel or brass,
Oh, stainless is quite a bit more than brass.
because it's much harder to extrude stainless.
Yes, and if you're going to go stainless switches, you're going to pay about 3 times the price of brass.
And since you're dead rail, it's irrelevant on, whether the brass oxidizes makes no difference, really.
No, that's correct. You don't care.
Well, any questions from our audience, our Zoomers?
We got one more section tonight, but this was just
Oh,
in regard to this. Yeah,
oh, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
good for that. Now, last week, I showed you all these things right here, these fans, which are the samples for siding, for vinyl, like you put on houses. I'm going to say in our neighborhood, new construction here, 90% of all homes are covered in vinyl siding. Now, as a modeling material, I have a feeling most of you have not built things from vinyl. I think most of you.
We're losing your sound.
Steve, you need to unmute. Unfortunately, I muted you thinking I was muting some background noise. Apologize.
Just unmute yourself, Steve.
Okay.
There we go.
We're good? Okay.
Yep, we're good.
All right, so back to this. I'm not sure where I'm going to use, but anyway, these vinyl samples, you can go to any construction site, to any dumpster, look inside, and there's going to be all kinds of vinyl scrap siding. It comes in many profiles. The nice thing about this is it's never been bent, so it's nice flat material. When you get this material, you're going to see right away two things. On one side, it's wood grain, many kinds of finishes. Some are coarse, some are quite fine. The back side is perfectly smooth. This is the side we went for our modeling. So you say, what can I make with this material? I will show you one of my models. And that's this one right here. The side walls on this model are made from vinyl siding. Just nice flat vinyl siding. It's nice. It is way stiffer than styrene or any other product you're going to work with. Now, I also have to explain to people how you cut this material. It's not like cutting styrene or something of that nature. If I don't have much in the way of tools, I'm going to get the sharpest utility blade I can find, and I'm simply going to score across here. Usually 3 times scoring will be sufficient. Once I do that, I just snap it. I just snap it right back, flip it around. There you go. Now I have my piece I want. Looks like a nice heap end for a hopper car, right? I have used this recently, and I'm going to step off screen here just 1 second and pick up something to show you, because this is a project underway. Just a second. So this is my most current build that I'm working on. I got this shell to which I sawed the front off of it here. I chopped it off in the chop saw because it had totally wrong for what I want to build. This is going to be an S6 when I'm done. All the sides were torn out of it because they were wrong as well. All the material you see here in the side is this right here. That's exactly what I put in there, this vinyl. When I put it and cut it in, you can sand this, usually 400 grit paper to sand it, to get it down flush. The rest of it is body putty to work it to the edges of the frame. This stuff is very dense, very hard. It'll make a heck of a finish for you. Same way on the top of it. This is a curved radius. Most of you are familiar. This material will bend for you. That's how they bend it for the houses, for the vinyl side. If you need a curvature or a radius, you can bend that. You just need a support underneath. It's going to give you the profile you want. Put it on there. I glue this stuff with regular old super glue, and then I sand and feather it to the edges that I want. So right there, I spent 0 on materials for this other than a little bit of red Bondo. The rest of it was just scraps that I gathered up from building this there. So I thought I would show you that. Now, if you go to a dumpster and you pick up materials, cutting it with the knife might be slow. So if you have a skill saw, typical skill saw, just like this one, you have to make an adaptation to this. Do not cut it with the blade that's on your skill saw. If I show you what you have, vinyl is cut with the teeth going the opposite direction. You will take your standard wood cutting blade, you'll take it off, you will turn it around. Rather than the teeth engaging, the back tooth on the vinyl is what does the cutting. If you try cutting it with this, you'll just shatter it and make a big mess. You just take a standard skill saw, flip the blade around. This is one I use in construction. We keep the same blade on here all the time, so we don't have to be changing it all the time. But you can take very large pieces, cut them down to 4 or 5 inch strips, whatever you like. Then you can go to your knife, a Dremel tool, or something like that for your hobby size work. Unless you think you're really good, and you can just use this to cut out all your parts that you need. But I want to make sure everybody understands that blade has to be turned and running the opposite direction. So there you go, a little bit about using vinyl for hobby purposes in building. So that's it for me for tonight. Any questions on this aspect, I'll be glad to answer as well.
Any questions for Steve? You know, what I'd like to see, Steve, is perhaps our audience doesn't know all the scratch building that you've done in G scale. Absolutely stunning locomotives. That could be a show unto itself, just to show all your work on that table. There are a few, maybe half a dozen, and just walk us through, because I mean, they're just very impressive models. I mean, the sheer size of them and the detail, and then they run like watches. I mean, it's amazing work you do, you know?
Well, this engine here, it's on to say, but I'm a Western Maryland guy, and I'm born and raised Western Maryland. So this particular is a Western Maryland engine. It's an S6. There's one still surviving on the Middletown Homestown Railroad near Hershey, Pennsylvania. What I'm going to do is I have to make a trip up there, because unfortunately, even though I spent a whole day at the Western Maryland Historical Society just 2 weeks ago, there are no photographs of the top of this locomotive. And that's very typical. Photographers just didn't photograph the top of engines. So to get the detail work, all I've done so far is blank off the stuff that I had to rip off of here that we knew was wrong. So a trip to the railroad, that's how I've done others in the past. And we'll photograph all this thing and we'll come back and start making the parts for it. So when I get done, maybe 3 months from now or something like that, I'll be glad to show you the finished locomotive. And there's some nice photos of the prototype as well. So
Yeah, plus some of your other locomotives and maybe a future show.
we can do that. I think I'm up. This is going to be like, I think number 8 that I've built. This will be number 8.
Well, let's see those, because they're works of art. Well, thank you, Steve, for your program this evening, and we look forward to part 3. Yeah.
Good.